Welcome to World History Pod, where ancient echoes meet modern minds. I'm your host, and today we're going back over 4,000 years, before Rome, before Babylon, before any emperor dreamed of world rule. This is the story of Akkadia, the world's first empire, and the man who built it from nothing, Sargon the Great. If you enjoy our journey through time, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps keep forgotten stories alive. Now, let's dive deep into the birth of empire itself. Akkadia. The rise of the first empire. Under Sargon, the great, before Rome marched across Europe, before Babylon raised its hanging gardens, and long before modern nations were etched onto the globe, there was Akkadia, the world's first empire born in the crucible of Mesopotamia. The Akkadian Empire didn't just conquer land, it forged the idea of empire itself, a multi-ethnic, multilingual domain held together by military might, divine right, administrative innovation, and the power of myth. And at its center stood one man whose name would echo for millennia: Sargon the Great. A land between two rivers, the setting of Akkadia. To understand Akkad, one must return to Mesopotamia, the land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, around 2400 BCE. This was a region of competing Sumerian city-states: Uruk, Ur, Kish, Lagash, Nippur, each ruled by its own priest-kings, each dedicated to its own patron deity. It was a fragmented world. The cities were often at war, fighting for water rights, trade routes, and dominance. Power shifted frequently. But the cultural foundation was strong. Cuneiform writing, ziggurats, math, astronomy, and law were already well developed by the Sumerians. And it was into this volatile yet fertile soil that Akkad, a Semitic-speaking people from the north of Sumer, planted the seeds of history's first unified imperial state, Sargon of Akkad. From cup-bearer to conqueror, legend has it that Sargon's story began in a basket on a river, a child set adrift by a mother who could not keep him, echoing stories told centuries later in the Bible and beyond. Raised by a humble gardener, he rose in the court of Kish as a cupbearer to the king, a trusted but subordinate position. But Sargon was no ordinary servant. Through cunning, charisma, and ambition, he overthrew his master and declared himself king of Akkad. Around 2334 BCE, he launched a series of military campaigns that stunned the Mesopotamian world. City after city fell: Uruk, Umma, Lagash. He unified all of Sumer under his control, then expanded north and west into modern-day Syria, Elam, and parts of Anatolia. Sargon claimed the title King of the Four Quarters of the World, asserting dominion over heaven and earth, and set a precedent that every later emperor, from Hammurabi to Cyrus, from Alexander to Caesar, would try to imitate. The city of Akkad, a lost capital, a living legacy. Sargon founded a capital called Akkad Agade, a glorious city whose exact location remains lost to archaeologists. Yet contemporary accounts describe it as a place of wealth, administration, and military command, a beacon of Akkadian unity and Semitic power in what had been a Sumerian world. Here, Sargon and his successors built bureaus to manage provinces, appointed governors, standardized weights and measures, collected taxes, and created the first centrally controlled standing army. Cuneiform, once the domain of Sumerian scribes, was now written in Akkadian, a Semitic language that would become the lingua franca of diplomacy and literature in the region for over 1,000 years. Expansion and control, the mechanism of empire. Sargon's empire stretched from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean, but control required more than conquest. He stationed garrisons and governors in conquered cities. He built roads and communication systems to move troops and information quickly. He appointed family members, his sons and daughters, as regional rulers and priestess to secure loyalty. Most famously, his daughter Enheduanna, priestess of the moon god Nana in Ur, became the world's first named author. Her hymns to the goddess Inanna blend theology and politics, portraying the Akkadian dynasty as divinely sanctioned. Sargon ruled for 56 years. Upon his death, his empire passed to his sons and later to his grandson Naram-Sin, who proclaimed himself god of Akkad and elevated the kingship to divine status, a first in recorded history. Naram-Sin and the peak of Akkadian power under Naram-Sin, RC 2254–2218 BCE, the Akkadian Empire reached its greatest extent and sophistication. His military victories were immortalized in the Stele of Naram-Sin, a limestone relief showing him climbing a mountain toward the heavens, adorned with a horned helmet, the symbol of divinity. He faced revolts, invasions, and even omens of divine displeasure, but he stamped out rebellions with force and administered a vast empire with remarkable resilience. He continued to build cities, temples, and canals, leaving an administrative model that later empires would emulate. Collapse and chaos. The fall of the First Empire. But even the strongest empires fall. By around 2154 BCE, the Akkadian Empire crumbled. Scholars suggest a mix of factors: internal revolts among subject peoples, overextension of military resources, environmental disaster. A severe drought known as the 4.2 kiloyear event led to famine, crop failure, and social unrest. The Gutians, a mountain people from the Zagros region, invaded and sacked Akkadian cities. Central control evaporated. Akkad itself may have been abandoned, yet even in ruin, the legacy of Akkad endured. Legacy. The idea of empire is born. The Akkadians were not just conquerors, they were civilizational architects. They pioneered the model of imperial administration with centralized power, appointed governors, and an imperial cult. Their language, Akkadian, became the script of diplomacy from Egypt to Assyria for over 1,000 years. Their approach to governance, integration over annihilation, was copied by the Babylonians, Assyrians, Persians, and even the Romans. And Sargon? His name became legend. Later, kings invoked him. Myths were written about him. In the Sumerian king list, he is remembered not only as a king, but as the one who had no rival or equal. Akkadia, the blueprint of power. Akkadia gave the world its first vision of what an empire could be. Multicultural, multilingual, ruled from a distant capital, held together by writing, roads, and divine right. It revealed both the promise and the peril of power, how unity can build a golden age, and how drought, hubris, and rebellion can bring even the greatest cities to dust. Though Akkad's stones are silent and its capital is lost, its voice remains, in tablets, in language, in law, and in every civilization that came after. Sargon and his empire did not just rule a land. They imagined a world,